I needed to move forward a little bit faster on my ideas and not be scared to step into it. Not be scared to step into the growth and then say, okay, I've got the support here. I need to use it and make it happen for me. I need to grow this business to be able to put food on the table for my family because they are so young.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is an Australian bookkeeper and systems and procedures expert who owns About Business Bookkeeping and Evolutionary Workflow. Plus, she is a longtime Pure Bookkeeping licensee. Jacqui Cubis, welcome to the show.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I am great, and it's so wonderful to have you as a guest on all the way from Australia, and also a very long-time community member of Pure Bookkeeping.
I am. I was an ambassador for the mentoring system there for a while, and I've been with Pure Bookkeeping for probably 9.5 years. I think they just started when I found them, so they're absolutely amazing, and I couldn't have grown without them.
It's beautiful. Well, I've heard of you so many times over the last 9.5 years. We've never met or even spoke, but I know you're up to great things in Australia, and I'm excited to share that with our listener.
Yeah, 100%. So where would you like to start? At the beginning? It could be a very long call.
We go right back to the beginning.
Oh,
yes.
no.
Okay. I'll let you tell what you think is relevant, but give us a bit of your career journey leading up to this point.
Okay, so I was always in finance. I probably shouldn't start that early, but started the bookkeeping business, really wanted to leverage as I had 2 really small children. Then I came across Pure Bookkeeping and probably had the business for about 1.5 years by that stage, but it was very small. The reason that I was attracted to it was really the HR section. So I used that really heavily, found my new first contractor, and off we went. So she did most of the work. I would say that she probably did 80% of the actual bookkeeping. So at the time, it did really hurt, obviously, the back pocket and my take-home income. But it really just grew from there. We got another one and another one and another one. And, of course, the business has ebbed and changed a lot over that time. And then bring us right forward, the turnover, obviously went up a lot in that time, thanks to Pure. And really, most of the clients have come on organically. So I've been very lucky in that regard. I haven't had to do much advertising. And then I tipped my toe in outsourcing and then fell into the pool of outsourcing. So now I absolutely love it. 2/3 of my team are offshore, and they are really the grunt of the back end of the whole business. So I have 2 girls here with me onshore, and the rest of the team is offshore, and they do all of the processing and really right up to BAS. And we're really sitting next to them through Zoom, and it runs beautifully. So they do our junior bookkeeping work. Obviously, BAS work, which is obviously very important over here. It does all the GST and all of those relevant things that we need for compliance.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
We check it and work with them from this end. So that's a pretty quick overview of the bookkeeping business. So that's run really well. And like I said, it's really the hand-holding both ways for Pure Bookkeeping. I love them, and they're fabulous, and they've put all our systems into place as far as the bookkeeping goes. So they've been great.
Lovely. And for many, it's always interesting. We've had many guests on from Australia talking about their story, and often bass will come up. And I think for our listeners in the United States, they're thinking, what, are you going fishing at the end of season, bass season? But for our listeners elsewhere, we've never asked that question and say, hey, look, what is bass for Australia?
Okay, so just similar to the UK who have their VAT, we have GST, which is Goods and Services Tax, and that's basically 10% on top of whatever the sale or the expense is that we really hold for the government and then pay them on a quarterly basis. So it's a bit of a messy system, obviously, because we're looking at every invoice and every bit of income that comes in for each client, and then we calculate it, and it's our job to tell them how much they owe at the end of the day. So the income, here you go, why are you asking me? The income, obviously you hold the 10% on that. When you get the expense, you're holding the 10% off that, and the balance, the difference, pays to the ATO, or the Australian Tax Office. So the BAS is really the business activity statement, and it's lodged either monthly or quarterly, depending on, when it's due from the client. So it's a really crazy time every quarter. So I don't know if that's explained it properly.
It does.
Yeah, it drills through. It really puts a line. Yeah, it puts a line in each client's file or their bookkeeping. So we know it's got to be finished and up to date each quarter. We've got to lodge those figures, and then we start again effectively.
Beautiful. Well, you've explained it for our international, so when they're listening to one of our wonderful Australian guests, they'll know right away what bass is, and it's not fishing, as much as we'd love to talk about fishing here.
That'd be lovely.
Yes, and there's an equivalent for sure in every country that collects tax. The government wants their fair share. Now, let's get back to you and the bookkeeping business. So many questions that come up out of just what you've said so far, but let's maybe go to, before we get into your other businesses, because you have other things that you've evolved into, and you've mentioned already mentoring. You mentor bookkeepers and have done so with Pure Bookkeeping, but we want to hear about Evolutionary Workflow as well. But I'm curious about the offshoring. I mean, many people would be interested in knowing, how did that go? What were some of the wins on that? What were some of the setbacks, hurdles that you had to overcome? Obviously, it's working for you now. We'd love to hear about that.
Well, I started through an agency to start with, because obviously I was terrified, like most people are. And to begin with, I have to admit, it was a big struggle. It was difficult for me to connect over there. I mean, I've learned a lot. So I found that I sort of dumped work on them and then wondered why they hadn't done it. So it's much more of a hand-holding experience than what I guess you go into, and that you find that difficult because they're not sitting next to you. And I guess I didn't have the right systems in place to be able to hand the work over and have a visual over what's being done and what's not being done. Of course, we use the Pure Bookkeeping system, but it just didn't. It was great for onshore, but teaching someone offshore all of the BAS and the GST to start with, what all the expenses were over here, what the petrol receipts were, all of those sort of things, teaching them Xero and QuickBooks online. I mean, there's so many things for them to learn. So to start with, we really floundered. I would say that the first person we had on was probably about 9 months before she actually earned us any money. So there was definitely a lot of queries whether or not it was worth it. But I powered through. And eventually, I guess I decided that the agency really were not worth the money that I was paying them. So I decided to find my own person. And since then, it's grown and grown. So there's 7 people that we've got working over there, over the 2 companies. So they sort of jump backwards and forwards depending on, what their workload is and what I need them to do. And we now use Karbon. So with Karbon, all of the workflow and everything that comes from Pure Bookkeeping is slotted into there, and it's rolled out to every client. And then that way we can allocate it and assign it to any team member, whether they're here or overseas in the Philippines. Because I've never, with my bookkeeping company, we've always worked remotely from each other anyway. We just see each other once a quarter after the BAS, and obviously we're on the phone all the time and we Zoom, but literally sitting next to each other has never really happened ever. So for 10, 12 years, we've just managed it certainly wasn't Zoom in the early days, and those my old files that we had to save and upload, and life's a lot easier now that it's in the cloud. But offshore, I just had to really focus on making sure that those team members were really part of the team. That's probably been the most important journey. And I'd say my biggest skill is delegating. The children would agree. So handing things over has never really been a problem, but the expectation of the level of work has probably been a problem. But the systems and the processes that we've got within Karbon have made that transition really easy these days. It's really, really good. And then once one team member trains the other, and we all just leverage off each other. But we work, it's a beautiful thing when it comes together.
It sounds that way. And it sounds like your workflow software that you're using, Karbon, that what were you using initially with your offshoring to manage all of that?
Well, we've tried everything, of course. We used XPM, Zero Practice Manager, which is connected to Xero. I don't know if you have that over there. We used that for a while. It was just too clunky for us. It just didn't have the communication. One of the things at the time, we've used Asana, we've used all sorts of things. Obviously, emails have flown backwards and forwards. One of the things, because we've always worked remotely, one of my concerns was I didn't really have an overview of all the emails that were flying around. So if somebody left our team, I had really no idea. Unless I'd been CC'd in, I really didn't know the communication that had gone backwards and forwards with the client. If the client was unhappy about something, I needed to go through that team member's complete outlook to find out what had happened. So that overview and that sense of control, certainly as the business got larger, more and more, or bigger, it was very difficult to hold that together. So that's where I guess when Karbon, it took them a little while, of course it does with every new business, but once they integrated those email addresses, and now we can see a full overview of what everybody is up to, every email, I can check that. So from my point of view, I haven't been on the tools and haven't done bookkeeping for about 6 years, but I can see exactly where every client is up to. And if it doesn't come through my inbox, then it's easy to find. So that's really what made me go to Karbon. And again, it's just grown and grown and grown. And also it sounds like I work for them. I honestly don't. But it is designed for accountants and bookkeepers, and I think that makes a really big difference. You're not reinventing the wheel. So for us and the overview and working with team offshore and a remote team onshore and having a large business with a lot of clients, I haven't found anything like it. So for us, it's a beautiful thing.
Lovely. And it sounds like it was a key piece to where you are today. That software that helps bring it all together and give you the visuals and keep track of what's happening. Let's hear a little bit about Evolutionary Workflow, your other business.
Okay, well, that's where that morphed, all of that system implementation, and I guess pulling it all, our ability as a team, pull it all together. Especially through Pure Bookkeeping, there was a lot of feedback backwards and forwards where people wanted to grow, but they didn't know how to trust staff, and how did they know what was going on? And of course, I've got a big mouth, so there was a lot of the same chatter that I'm having with you, that this really does work for us. And then there was a lot of people that really wanted help, like, I don't know how to implement this. How do you get this working? How do I get Pure Bookkeeping into Karbon and get that working? Is there other job and tasks that can go in there that maybe, mesh a little bit better that maybe Pure doesn't have? So we built around those queries and that need another set of systems effectively. So anyone that is with Pure Bookkeeping, we obviously use their entire system, and we roll that. We really go into another bookkeeper's business and they let us in, which is phenomenal, and the trust is there, which is great. They let it in us into their business, and we literally copy what we do into Karbon. So we roll their clients out. We put all of their jobs and their work and their tasks in. We allocate it and assign it to any of their team members, connect it up to all their clients, businesses, but also all the contacts, the emails, everything goes in there. So we really customise and implement all of that work and all of those tasks, and then we give them some training at the end of it. So out of there, of course, has come mentoring, which is a whole other thing. Yeah, so the team offshore work with all of that for me. So I'm onshore, obviously, and talking to the other bookkeepers. So they're all over the country. There's from Perth, which is, a million miles away, Queensland, Tasmania. So they seem to be coming from everywhere, which is fabulous. And we basically just hold their hand and get them through that journey. It is designed
I love that.
for a business that at least has 2 team members. It's a big engine. But, we get them up and running. Well, that's goal. And ensure that they know all the tips and tricks, which change all the time, of course, but at that point, whatever they are.
It's one of those things I can relate literally to that today. I have a system that I use for it's actually for some live software stuff to do presentations, and it's really, really powerful. And there's all this training on it and all these different things. Everything I ever need to have available to me is there. However, I was just going through a lot of it. I'm like, I just want to work with somebody who's already figured all this out. And, I know I have everything, but I'd like for them to just come and show me and even implement it for me so that I can just get into it. It's like an accelerator to get going with that. And so I sent them an email saying, do you have this service? Well, that's what you do with bookkeepers who are working with Pure Bookkeeping. And really an accelerator. You figured it out. You've put all the bolts and the nuts and the parts and pieces all together. It's been running great, winning races. Let's get that race car over here and just build it as if it's their business. I love that.
Yeah, we love it too. So anything that's not pure bookkeeping, we have a whole nother set of workflow for those people that is, simplified. It does everything that you need it to do. But obviously because of the licensee thing that we've got going on with Pure, we don't duplicate that. The service is the same from us. There aren't any kickbacks. We're not connected to anyone at all. Practice, Protect, Karbon, any of the software that we use, we don't have any connection with. So all of our conversation and all of our work is really based on our own experience. And, it's the problems that we've had as well as the successes. And that is part of the business. So that is the company that I'm in now. That's where my passion is really. So, I just love it. And the team are fabulous and it's growing and growing. And again, just by word of mouth. So we've been very lucky in that regard. So, it's great. And there's no reason really that it can't be an international thing. We are moving towards that. It's just working with someone, I guess, and having a couple of crash test dummies that use your tax system rather than our BAS, because it is quite specified to that. And I guess the implementation part is really as if, if you've got a big client that comes to you and they've got a brand new Xero file or QuickBooks file and they've been working on it themselves, and it's, they know that there is more that they can get out of the file. They know that it's not working properly. It takes them so long to get together, and then they come to you to get it fixed. And that you could have done it in 5 minutes, well, not 5 minutes, but a much quicker time. And I don't know about anyone out there, but whenever I hear someone working on their own Xero file and they've put it together, I do shake my head, because I think, it's so quick and easy for somebody who's had the experience. But anyway, so that's sort of where the guidance comes from us, I suppose. This is what you can do. This is what it does. If you need our help to implement it, we're here. And, from there we just have that chat that just continues and continues, and we put their work and their business into the system. So that's where Evolutionary Workflow came from, really.
I love it. And I'm sure there's many of our listeners that are thinking, I would want to take you up on that offer of being maybe one of the people that are international and can test out with you to see if it, and I really can see that as, we have Pure Bookkeeping in Australia, the United States, Canada, We've been in the UK. It's an international community. You just have to work around the time zones, which many people here, you and I are talking right now, and it's all just fine.
Yeah, that's right. You just get on.
Tell me about the learnings that you got from, you started your business. If there were things you would have done differently, looking back today, what were some of the things that come up, or do they come up for you?
They definitely come up. As far as the hiring goes, I would probably hire slowly and fire more quickly. That would definitely be a thing. And I think that's that old adage, isn't it, that we try to do. So that would definitely be a thing, because I found that, you lose, I wouldn't say, you can lose clients over that, because you tend to trust your new employee and they go on, and then again you lose sight of what's happening. So that's been probably one of my biggest problems, I would say, going through, and waiting till you're absolutely desperate before you do something. So when someone's tapping, or something's tapping you on the shoulder saying, I really need to do this, and then the next little tap's a little bit harder, I really need to do this, and then before the brick wall lands on you and you're stressed and you're working weekends and you can't get ahead of it, you really need to, or I needed to, move forward a little bit faster on my ideas and not be scared to step into it. Not be scared to step into the growth and then say, okay, I've got the support here. I need to use it and make it happen for me. I need to grow this business to be able to put food on the table for my family, because they are so young. I can't work 60 and 70 hours a week. I probably really only work 15 to 20 hours now, and I've got 2 companies and 10 staff. So it is really putting those systems into place, which I keep going back to, but it really is that, so that you can overview everything and you're working on your business instead of in it, which is exactly what I do. That's my job. So my job is talking to people, which obviously I'm very good at, and making sure that the team's running smoothly, answering their queries as quickly as I can so that they can move forward. And then I can sort of dust my hands off from it and move on to the next little thing. So, yeah, I'd say staffing is probably the biggest journey I've had, which is the reason that I've joined Pure in the first place. And then stepping into your fear as quickly as you can instead of running away from it. And that's still a journey, because we're evolving all the time. So, yeah, I think they're probably the biggest challenges.
It's very, very insightful and inspirational as well. I mean, I've been talking about systems for a better part of a decade, over a decade now, and sometimes it's very hard to get people to understand what they are, why they're important. You went searching for them. What was it that had you go and find Pure Bookkeeping?
Well, it was the employment of somebody. I needed support. I had 2 babies. So one was 6 months and one was, 2 years. And I was a single mum. So there wasn't much income coming in. I needed something that I can work from home, but there was absolutely no way that I could put the hours in to put food on the table. So, pay the mortgage and do all of those things on my own. So I really didn't have an option. And then, of course, they came in and I went down to Sydney, which is 2 hours away, and we sat in the little room, and Peter was there, and, Debbie was there, and they sold it to me. They're very good. And I just believed in it straight away. I was terrified about investing financially into it. I actually had to draw down on the mortgage to invest into it. But it was that HR that I just thought I need that to be able to leverage off poor old Mel. So she worked like a Trojan. And then from there, together we grew. So Mel actually ended up leaving me, I would say 5 or 6 years later. And then now that we're down the track with, I had 9 staff, and I basically headhunted her back and said, can you please come back? And she's really taken, in the last 6 months, she's taken about business bookkeeping, all of the trials and tribulations and the workflow and everything that goes with running a business. She's taken that on board as the practice manager. She knows Pure Bookkeeping. We're great friends. I trust her with my life. So you sort of get into that stage that it is a big financial step to get a practice manager in, but then you get to the stage that you're like, that lay is so worth the growth in the business. So it started out to feed the family, and it ended up the same person growing the business with me, someone to share it with as well, someone to say, oh, this has happened, what should we do? Everybody that runs a business has that. And I think bookkeeping can be a very lonely journey out there. So that's another reason that the HR has really made a big difference psychologically as well as everything else. I get to share it with somebody and they hold my hand. So that was one of the big draw cards, definitely.
It is. It's inspirational, and you can really hear there's in any journey there's these moments where you have to do things that are not comfortable, that maybe are a little bit scary. And if you don't take those steps, well, you're not taking steps. I mean, do something less risky, perhaps, but you jumped in and you made it happen. And now looking back, now you're running 2 different businesses, multiple staff, remarkable.
Thanks. What can I say? Thanks. I do feel it's strange, isn't it? Because I think you go through maybe even years and years of feeling like you know internally that maybe, or you are struggling, and it's faking it until you make it sometimes, and perception is reality. So in the background you're pedaling madly like a little mouse and wondering, does it look like that's what I'm doing, to the outside world? But now I actually feel, strangely, for probably the last 12 to 18 months only, that I've really got a handle on this. And it really is moving into the second business, Evolutionary, that I really feel like I've really got a handle on it. The staff are fabulous. Everybody works as a team. The offshore team, are amazing. I consider them all my friends. We've been over to visit them, obviously, before COVID. It's just all come together. So really, I really feel like I'm actually good at this. And I think that most people out there, and that's why we join all these groups. It's really to get a pat on the back. But I really feel like now, okay, I'm all right at this. So that insecurity is leaving, thankfully. I'm old enough. So, yeah, I think you just got to keep powering through and taking the right step until it sort of molds to where you want it to be. And don't be scared. Don't let anyone hold you back.
You mentioned something about taking the leap and how things have shifted for you in the last 12 to 18 months. It's very interesting because I've seen other situations where, you expanded, and that expansion required new thoughts, new skills, new actions. And by doing that, it actually made you better at what you were doing prior. So you took on a bigger plate, you had to adjust to do that, but then the plate you managed before, a little bit smaller, now becomes, well, it's a smaller plate. And so that can often be a benefit, I think, when people are doing things and expanding what they're doing, expanding their commitments. It seems difficult, challenging, but then it gets easier a lot more quickly because you've adjusted and you're able to manage all of it much better. And so it sounds like that's something that's affected you as well. I would love to hear about more technology from you. Obviously you're really into it. You found some really great apps. Are there other apps other than Karbon that you have found valuable for your tech stack?
100%. So I do discuss this with everyone when we're bringing them on. So the most important to me, apart from Karbon, is Practice Protect for the security, especially, well, I shouldn't say especially for offshore. It's applicable for anyone offshore, any team member, even just your own business for you. I know a lot of people use businesses that just store their passwords, and they've got security, of course. You've got your own computer security on your hard drive. That's great. But I love Practice Protect. They really handhold and support you as well, and they give that complete over security where all of your apps, computer-generated passwords, they're all within there. So that is the first thing that I recommend anyone gets, and then that way they can grow and trust that they've got that security there. So that's number one. Karbon, of course, we use Office 365 so that everybody has access to the calendar and everything that we need to look at. And, of course, from my point of view, I've got the admin access. I can add and, remove people really quickly. What else do we use? We use TSheets because on my my accounts is actually through QuickBooks Online, which is unusual out here. But my accounts are linked to there, which means we use TSheets. So that tracks all of the girls' hours and then, of course, brings the budget and the actual times into Karbon, which they track in the background of every task and every work as well. And we also use Practice Ignition. So that signs up all my engagement letters and also uses the direct debits out of the bank accounts of any clients. And that can be set up weekly, monthly, or just ad hoc, on exceptional completion. So once again, it's all about setting the systems up, isn't it? But once they're all set up, it's a beautiful thing. I love it. It just flows. So they're probably the main ones. We've got other few, little ones along the way. Zoom, we live and breathe. That's open constantly, and we chat backwards and forwards through that, just like you would Messenger and Facebook. So little quick ones we'd send, is this done, is that done, rather than looking at Karbon and clogging that up. And then we can just click on and see each other. So that's another way to bring your team together and be all on the same page. So that's probably my main tech stack. I know it's not the same as everybody else's, and it probably can be upgraded to something else, but it works for us. Everybody knows it. It's simple for us. Yeah, and I like it. It works.
It's a really good comment and thought. It could be different, but it doesn't need to be, because you figured it out and it's working great for you. And that can be a challenge for many, where they get app envy or, the next shiny fancy object. And that is a lot of time invested to switch things over. And are you getting the lift you need from switching things out? And so that's, I think, one of the big challenges is that people don't know necessarily how to best use the stack that they have. And that's the bigger problem. And moving to a new stack doesn't necessarily solve that problem. It's embrace and implement fully what you have, and you will get the lift or benefit. Now, there are definitely lots of exceptions to those rules, going to better systems and that sort of thing. We noticed that when Pure Bookkeeping moved from a product called Infusionsoft to HubSpot. I mean, it's like literally going from a wagon to a spaceship flying through the universe, and it's like, yeah, it was worth the change for our business and what it's enabled us to do and deliver better service and all that good stuff. Love your tech stack and your take on that. Share with us how I definitely know our listener right now is thinking, how can I learn more from Jacqui and her organization and what she's been doing? Tell us how people can learn more about you.
Just contact me, really. We've got a Facebook page. I'm not very good at marketing, so we've got a Facebook page that we are trying to get up and running. But basically just contact me. So it's jacqui.support@evolutionaryworkflow.com. For those Aussies out there, there's no AU on the end. So if you just shoot me an email, we can make a time and have a talk. That's basically the best way, I feel. And then, we can run through whether or not we're any help to you. I, as you can see, have a lot to say. So there's a lot of things that we do talk about, like tech stack. What's your pain points in your business? Is it worth you growing, or are you happy? Maybe Karbon's not the best thing for you. There might be another workflow system if you don't want to grow. There's lots of different options, and I can just talk to them about, where they're at, what they want to do. And I guess it is like a little bit of mentoring. And then from there, it's working out whether or not we can help them or we can't, or we're not the right time, or they're not space for them. There's no pressure whatsoever. It's just basically a chat and a tap in, and then if we can help, we move forward from there. So that's probably the main thing. So, just email me. We set up a time and off we go. So we try to knock it over the head in 15 minutes, but please prepare that it's going to take longer. And then we'll book in a longer call if there is something that we can help you with.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure many people will be interested and considering this. You're a wonderful person to have in our community. And so on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for coming on, sharing your experiences, your journey, and your wisdom with us. It's been our pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.